Hi there, everyone. This is Hoff, your WayForward social media Tinkerbat, coming to you live from Central City. I am sorry we missed having a chat last week. We had some deadlines come up. Our guest had to bail. Personal matters got in the way. It was like Crisis on Infinite Way Forwards or Infinite Crisis on Way Forward or something like that. But we are back this week. We are extremely pumped to talk to you guys again. We are extremely pumped for San Diego Comic-Con, which has already kicked off. Hope you are all already enjoying the deluge of pop culture info that is coming our way. And sort of in celebration of this, big annual event, we are here to talk about, some comic book type stuff. The comic book and video game connection. Also, just conventions in general, probably. Also, of course, WayForward video games and other related topics. A couple weeks back, we talked about anime as we were going into Anime Expo. So, this time we'll be talking more about comic books. And to do that, I am once again joined by my usual co-host, WayForward head of BizDev and publishing Adam Tierney, as well as a frequent guest and overall handsome gentleman, WayForward director James Huge Bowels Montagna. Thank you for joining me today.
Hello.
Oh, you had to, didn't you? Why, thank you. Hello.
I'll be honest, the main reason we had to have this episode today was so I could make that joke. Since,
I had it coming.
Screenshotted the heck out of that last week on our live stream.
You want to quickly tell the story of where that came from?
I mean, it's from Shantae Risky's Revenge. At the beginning of the game, we discover that Uncle Mimic has huge bowels, and you decide to screenshot that on my Switch 2 at least a dozen times. So
I decided to prank you by screenshotting that about 37 times. So hope you had fun with that.
It was fantastic. I appreciate the group delete option on Switch 2. Although they are still there. I've not deleted them yet. They live on in infamy.
Sentimental
anyway,
value.
Yeah. So, comic books, Comic-Con. But before we really get into the discussion, I do want to drop a PSA for any of our fans who will be attending SDCC. And that is that Shantae series director Matt Bozon, Shantae creator Aaron Bozon, their sequel, who also worked on the Shantae games, Bryn Bozon, they're all there, along with a Shantae artist, DJ Mikan, and they are going to be doing signings at the Udon booth throughout the show. Udon has a ton of exclusive Shantae merch. There are 2 exclusive cover variants of the 2025 Shantae Swimsuit Special, which is primarily a pinup special, but also contains like all new story comic book segments. There's a new Shantae Beach tee, a new Petite Genie collectible pins of Shantae, Roddy, Sky, Risky, and Nega Shantae, a shimmering Shantae tee, which has metallic silver ink on a black t-shirt with new art by Aaron Bozon, a Shantae collectible metal card set, and more. And disclaimer, this is all official Bozon Shantae merchandise. Technically, it is not WayForward merch, so those of us here don't really know anything about it. Technically, we're not involved, but it is all pretty awesome. I am jealous for everyone who is attending and will be able to get their hands on it. Have you guys seen any of this stuff?
I've only seen the online previews, but yeah, all the new covers look fantastic.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it looks great.
Anyway, are we ready to talk about comic books and Comic-Con?
Sure. I'm excited. Tomorrow I'm going to be at Comic-Con looking at lots of comic books.
Nice.
And of course, we will be taking questions later, so anybody, if you want to ask us anything, just drop your questions in chat with a Q:, and we will get to as many as we can later on in the show. So I guess maybe a good way to start this out is, what would you guys say is the connective tissue between comic books and video games?
So I think it kind of depends on the individual. I know for myself, I am now mostly oversee biz dev and publishing at WayForward, but I directed games here for almost 20 years. And I'd love to hear James's opinion on this as well. But for me, it's just kind of everything I loved as a kid growing up, all factors into the game. So when I'm, creating a game, designing a game, directing a game, I'm not just looking at the previous games I've, enjoyed growing up. I'm looking at movies, I'm looking at TV shows, I'm looking at toys, and I'm definitely looking at comic books. I was a child of the 80s into the 90s, which is kind of the perfect era. It's like the height of comic books, all the Marvel stuff and transitioning into Image Comics. I was like, right at the perfect age during that time. All the Vertigo stuff with DC, all the Sandman and Death and all that stuff. Hellblazer is still one of my favorites. So all that stuff was just very influential in my game dev process. And then when we started, we've always kind of done different, variety of presentation in our games, but we really started kind of leaning maybe about 5 or 6 years ago pretty heavily into the whole idea of like quote unquote motion comics for our cutscenes. And it's great. It's we kind of ripped it off from season 1 of Fully Cooley, who just did it fantastically in this crazy little 5-minute sequence. But it's great bang for the buck because it's fun to you get a lot of personality for minimal effort compared to like full animation. And in the case of River City Girls, it's crazy because all of those comics actually exist. The artist Rem draws on paper with pen and ink. And so there's like originals floating all around WayForward, so that they're digital and they're animated and augmented within the games. But yeah, those are like legit, actual physical comic book pages for all those River City Girls cutscenes. So yeah, I mean, for me, it was just there's so many different ways that comic books have influenced me as a game developer and as a creator and just in life in general. How about yourself, James?
Well, I grew up reading a lot of like manga, so these Japanese comic books. And some of them had like a different kind of like format than you might sort of see in like American comics, where um, this comes up with me a lot. Azumanga Daioh. This one had like the four koma style of comic where it'd be like a simple gag told in like 4 panels. And I was
Mhm.
like very, very like obsessed with that kind of style of like just really easy, digestible, like one shot joke sort of storytelling. It's almost like it, if I had to compare it to something Western, it would be like a funny papers like strip, right? Um, but these are the sort of things I was reading, and like Calvin and Hobbes, I would always go to every single like kind of like scholastic book fair and walk away with like every Calvin and Hobbes thing I could. I ended up having like so many like thick like Calvin and Hobbes like books I had to like throw them away eventually because it was just too much stuff.
Easily the best comic strip ever made. Sorry Peanut, sorry Garfield, sorry everything else. Calvin and Hobbes is still the king in my opinion.
Agreed. Yes, thank you. I get a lot of crap for that one, but it's seriously it holds up so well even now.
It does, and
And you know
there's
what?
a really affordable like all-in-one edition now. The crazy thing too that it actually taught me a lot as a creator too, because Calvin and Hobbes, I might have the date slightly wrong, started in
Uh,
1985, finished
yeah.
in 1995, got out when Bill Watterson got out when it was at like the height of its like acclaim and everything, and I always just found
Mhm.
that so interesting, as opposed to something like I think it's more common if you have the success to have a comic strip just go on forever. Like
Yeah.
Peanuts, basically, I believe, went until kind of like the year that Charles Schulz died. And it's great, and it's great to have so many decades of that. Or you look at something like Archie Comics, where it trades
Sure.
hands and creators. But I always thought there was something very elegant about this, like perfect 1 decade piece of art that Bill Watterson did with Calvin and Hobbes.
Completely, and it still holds up to this day. I feel like bowing out that way just like puts you cemented in legendary status. I don't have no other way to put it, and I can't even say why. I mean, I think it's like equally awesome for Peanuts to go as long as possible. And I mean, to this day, that intellectual property, 80 years old, they're celebrating the recently the Peanuts anniversary. Like that's incredible achievement. But there's just something about this, like it's a time capsule, but it's also timeless that I loved about that. That was just so cool. I'm glad you enjoy it too. We've never talked about this, so it's like kind of interesting that we get the opportunity now. Um, but I mean, that's kind of stuff I grew up on. I was reading a lot of like those kinds of comics as opposed to like superhero comic books or something like that.
Mhm.
Not that there's anything wrong with those, and I've come to appreciate those like later on. But as a kid, I was influenced by this kind of offbeat sort of thing a lot, and so
There was
I
pretty, and
sometimes
you know,
feel like
when you and I were kids, you're a little bit younger than me, but there
sure,
was a surprisingly good amount of that stuff floating around in the wild, especially in like the early '90s, mid to '90s, because Dark Horse used to do so many manga things, carrying them over. I still have like a lot of my '90s editions of like Domu and Gunsmith Cats and all that kind of stuff, and I think that yeah, for whatever reason, it was just I think that that '90s era really became just like obviously huge for superhero comics, but really kind of the initial modern manga explosion in the U.S. as well.
absolutely. We had companies like Dark Horse. There was also like what was it? Tokyo Pop. Tokyo Pop. I don't think they're around anymore, but they were like localizing things like I was reading Monkey Punch's original Lupin the Third manga in English, and it was like I was collecting issues of it. It was just like I think it was like half the height of my body at one point, the number of issues of books I had of it. So we had exposure to that stuff. There was like ways to get that stuff. I really feel like the audience for games and like comics or manga at some point is like it's a Venn diagram that's like essentially a circle. Sometimes it really feels that way. There's a lot that ties games and comics together in so many ways.
For
Important
sure.
PSA: Tokyo Pop is still alive and well, as far as I can
Oh,
tell.
nice.
Oh, great. Oh, good to know.
And now you've got Viz is the other big king in terms of American translations and versions of manga and stuff. There's so many good publishers now.
Right, they do One Piece. I mean, for crying out loud, Dragon Ball Z and One Piece is Viz Media. That's amazing. Yep.
So yeah, I mean, and for people that don't know what Comic Con is, so it's short for Comic Convention, and there are a number of comic conventions worldwide throughout the years. We all live in Los Angeles, so we get spoiled. It's like half the big ones are within driving distance of us. But the king, going back to I think the '70s or something like that, before I was born, has always been the San Diego Comic Con. I have been going to SDCC since 1990 when it was still
Oh,
relatively small. I think I was just what would I have been like 12 years old or something, and it was just like if everyone's been to the modern Comic Con, if you go to like the little artist alley section where it's just a couple of small rows of artists, that was basically the entirety of the comic convention at that point. And of course now it's this massive thousands of booths and I can't even imagine how many square feet of pop culture, video games, films, TV, toys, marketplace, lots of pop figures. I would imagine lots of Labubus now. That seems to be overtaking everything. And
right.
yeah, it's just such a cool celebration of all that stuff, and it's also really cool whenever we can connect with that specifically. We have not had a booth or a panel yet at San Diego Comic Con. We might try and see if we can get that in the future for WayForward,
Yeah,
but
that'd be awesome.
Limited Run has had booths there. We've done signings with them and sold our items with them. As Hoff mentioned earlier, Matt has comics debuting there for Shantae and stuff. So yeah, really, it's one of my favorite things each year is to go to SCCC. So I'm really excited to go there starting tomorrow. And then we also have there's lots of other ones in the Los Angeles area. There's WonderCon, which is by the same organization. That's in Anaheim. A lot of people, I think it's still, if you're not in the industry, it's really difficult to get into San Diego Comic Con just because the demand for tickets greatly outweighs the supply available. I know they do lotteries and
Yeah.
stuff. So I would definitely recommend if you can't get into San Diego Comic Con and always wanted to go to WonderCon in Anaheim. It's a few months earlier. It's exactly the same thing, just on like a smaller, stage, so to speak. But they have all the same cool guests. I went there, I think a year ago with my son. He met Todd McFarlane, the acclaimed artist, and he got a signature by him. And
Nice.
there's
Mr. Spawn himself.
I know, yeah, and there's really cool stuff there. And then, of course, there's aside from comic conventions, there's the growing population of anime conventions. Again, a lot of those around Los Angeles as well. And yeah, we were just fortunate to have our third Anime Expo panel, which is great. Went really good. Audience came out. You know, tons of people there. We gave away our first collector's card to the attendees there. Showed off a bunch of games, did some cool Q&A and trivia, gave a really cool reveal of a 3D game that we're currently working on, original IP, and yeah, it's really cool. So I think we want to expand more beyond that. We've done a little bit of like booth work in terms of usually through The Mix and Los Angeles Comic Con. In previous years, you've seen us at some of those shows demoing River City Girls 2, Rose and Camellia, Clock Tower, and you know, some of our upcoming and current titles at the time. But yeah, I think we want to try and expand on this stuff even more. That's something that Hoff and I and the rest of the pub group have been talking about over the past week. Is let's see what other panels we can get into. We've got one another anime related show that we might be at in the near future, and so I'm hoping we could just line up as many of these things as possible. And also, it's great to just get together with you guys, especially the Los Angeles based WayForward fans, and connect with you guys one on one.
Yeah, I mean, it's great being here in the live chat podcast, but being able to see people in person is sometimes that's even better. So continue. Oh, all right, go ahead.
Oh, so yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead, Hoff.
Well, I was just gonna ask about what you guys found appealing about those kinds of comics you mentioned. I mean, James talked about how he liked those 4 panel strips. What was it about that caught your attention, and how has that influenced you since then?
Well, I think for me, every WayForward director has their own, and creator, really staff member, everything has their own kind of style. For me, I'm always, whenever given the opportunity, focused on characters and story and dialogue. I'm very much a student of Matt Bozon on the game side. I was a huge WayForward super fan before I joined the company, but I think most of my storytelling skills and proclivities come from comic books because I just devoured them. And crazy enough, my favorite comic book ever is still going by the same creator, which is Usagi Ojimbo. It's
Yeah.
bounced around between
Right.
Dark Horse and Mirage and IDW and a whole other place. I think right now it's back at Dark Horse, but it's under his Dogu label, his own label of publishing. But yeah, Stan, I believe, is in his 70s now. So for 40 years, he's been cranking out these issues. And what's incredible about Usagi Ojimbo is he is writing it, penciling it, inking it, and lettering it, doing everything that you see on the page, top to bottom. It's a black and white comic, so there's no colors, but yeah, he does everything that you see on the page, and he's been doing those regularly for 40 years, and there's hundreds and hundreds of stories, and they're so good because they really range from like very silly and charming to very deep and dramatic. I think a lot of people have kind of like a tangential perspective of Usagi Ojimbo, usually from the Turtles games or cartoons,
Yep, that's how I was
or
introduced to
yeah,
him.
TV series. But really the core work, the actual comics by him, are just incredible storytelling. And so hugely influential to me. Anybody who's interested in Usagi Ojimbo, there are these gorgeous massive volumes available called the Legend series. So it's like Usagi Ojimbo Legends Volume 1, Volume 2, or it's either Legends or Saga, I forget. They have 2 different types of books, and they're really great. They're like hundreds and hundreds of pages for about $25. I would highly recommend anybody who loves good storytelling, who enjoys Japanese folklore, because that's the cool thing about Usagi. Like, he can be fighting a warrior one day, and then the next day be in a forest full of like yokai and spirits and vampires and stuff. Like, it really does everything in the kitchen sink. But it's just such a celebration of Japanese lore, fantastic storytelling. So that, I think, will, to the day I die, be my favorite comic book, and I highly recommend people check that one out.
That's so cool. We have to get around to making a video game about that one someday or something.
He
You've
deserves
been
it. Yeah,
recommending
I mean,
it
Yeah,
so
there's.
totally.
long.
I love the Usagi animations
Yeah.
in Shredder's Revenge, top notch.
Shredder's Revenge, right?
Yeah, Tribute and .mu did such a good job on that. But yeah, Usagi himself has. There was a Commodore 64 game, probably about
Right.
40 years ago. There was a
Oh man.
very short-lived mobile game, and I think that's it, other than Cameo. So yeah, the dude has
So it's
such a
time.
fantastic history. There needs to be a full dedicated Usagi game again.
Maybe we make that happen someday. Um, it's funny. I'm a student of Matt Bozon as well, but I think I'm like really kind of contrasting in some ways, and complementary as well. And that's why we always work so well together, Adam. I'm really like less focused on story per se, and that's not to say like I wouldn't take influence from comics. Absolutely do, and so many of our games, incidentally, have had something comic tied to it. Like Wonder Momo back in 2014 had a whole web comic that our game was like based on. Yars Rising that we just did, it had a comic origins, and I can talk a little bit about that. But
I
I'm
even know
not
the
always
writer of
taking
that.
away like story. Was that?
He said, "Yeah, I think we even
Oh,
know the writer."
that's right. Yeah, a very recent episode of this podcast is worth listening to if you're interested in that. Um, I've always had a soft spot for comics that play with like structure and tone, like Azumanga, as I mentioned, and Fooly Cooly came up earlier. The manga of that, those were my gateway into the idea that comics don't have to like follow rules. And Lupin the Third, as I mentioned, like just a stack of issues. That story was so wild, it's unpredictable, and that kind of really taught me that chaos can be cool. Characters don't need to be clean-cut heroes to be like magnetic, and that's the kind of energy I think that bleeds into how I personally approach like character design and how I would like to look at narrative in games. I'm not really focused on always telling a deep story, but if I can like have something that sparks a feeling or gives emotion. I think that's what drew me to that kind of things. They weren't afraid to be messy in the best way. Fooly
Yeah.
Cooly especially felt
Well,
like a.
perfect example is the creator of Mob Psycho and One Punch Man. You look at One Punch Man, and it's
Oh my God! Yes.
beautiful, polished artwork. But he is I think he's would say himself a very kind of like rough, less traditionally trained artist. And you look at Mob Psycho, and it has a very rough style, but it's very charming. So there's this kind of nice like amateur aspect to it. Then obviously the creator gets better and better with every new volume. But I love that. I love that. I wish I had that those guts myself. I will always be a writer, even though I have some art skills. I will always keep those private. But I love seeing every permutation of it, and that's the cool thing. As you look at comics, and you have people that are much more of a writer, and then they do art, and people that are much more of an artist, and they do writing, and every combination thereof. And yeah, I just love seeing people vision. Another one that I think is a very popular comic book series, but everybody should be checking out, is Mike Mignolia's Hellboy comics. Really
Yeah.
just absolute top of his game master in terms of storytelling, humor, drama, and especially his gorgeous art. And very similar to Usagi Ojimbo and Stan Sakai, has just been cranking out stories for decades. I think he's about 10 years behind him, but yeah, really good stuff.
It's so funny you brought up One Punch Man. I love it for the same reason. So the artist, I think he goes by one, but his name is like Tomohiro. He basically was like self-proclaimed like not really so much like an artist, but he just kept making this thing. And if you look at the early stuff, it's so rough. I don't know if you've seen the early Lupin the Third Monkey Punch like original manga,
Oh yeah,
Adam,
I
but
love it.
it's the same way. It's so rough, but it's like it just works so well. It's so I think what you were kind of getting at is there's something like so pure about like that kind of writing. If it can be a little scribbly, but it can still grip you. I love that, especially when you get like that kind of like emotional whiplash where you can
Yeah.
go from like this absurd comedy and then there's like a sudden genuine gut punch, but it's like you look at it and stylistically it really is messy.
Oh
i
God,
i
yeah.
think that's something that we can carry into game moments too, where the fun isn't just like in the presentation solely. It's the ways we can surprise and make things work even in a rough way. Sometimes you can just really do something that is very much like I guess turn things on its head. And yeah, I guess I'm just kind of trying to find a way to draw those things together, because I always look at that Lupin manga, and when I'm making games and things like that, I'm always thinking about like how rough that was. And if I'm like really trying to nitpick some detail, I'm like, wait a minute, what? Sometimes less is more. So there's really
It's
practical ways that this ties together too.
It's so great. Yeah, Monkey Punch's art style, like you said, it's rough, it's very goony, it's very wonky, and I love the fact that that's kind of what I love in particular about some of the recent seasons and the Takashi Koike movies and series is they're kind of bringing more of that
They're
roughness
bringing it
back
back.
into it.
They're
Because
bringing it back.
if you look at like the earliest, Miyazaki and part one and part two, like they're pretty clean and pretty traditional anime style, but I love that they're getting like more into the kind of goofier original Monkey Punch style with some of the recent animes.
It's fun to see, like, the comic style come to life, absolutely, and there's more things doing that, like, I know even in the more this people are very divided on this, but the more recent, like Sailor Moon Crystal, for instance, they're really kind of bringing back a classic manga look and that sort of thing too. I personally really liked it. The original is still superior to me, but I feel like we're seeing more of that stuff as people are able to express more artistically with, like, technology too.
Another cool thing that we get to do as way forward creatives and directors is most of the people that work on way forward games are way forward staffers. Like we've got a large network of programmers and artists and animators and musicians and audio and all that kind of stuff, but for specialized roles, we will sometimes pick up individuals and work with freelancers, people that don't aren't way forward staffers, but people that we're reaching out to. It's like, oh, this will be the perfect artist for this. This will be the perfect voice for this, or something like that. And the first game that I directed at the company was an X-Men game. It was right after I had finished being assistant director with Matt Bozon on Sigma Star Saga, which I think a lot of you hopefully will be able to play for the first time when it comes out on PC and all consoles, the DX version. But my first solo outing was an X-Men game on GBA, and we needed illustrations of the characters. And so like like any creative in his 20s, it's like, well, why not just go to the top? So I reached out to my favorite comic book artist ever at the time, probably still to this day, Mr. Chris Pacello, who still does so much incredible work for DC and Marvel. He's most famous for doing X-Men work, for doing the Death miniseries with Neil Gaiman, for doing Generation X, which is like the coolest most 90s ever version of the X-Men, Shade the Changing Man, all these cool things. And we needed somebody to draw the comic book characters, so I reached out to him and he was interested, and he ended up drawing them for us, and it was great because it was like that was kind of like, I think, at least for the projects I was on, my first kind of dipping a toe into that blending of what I know about with comic books and bringing it into games. So we had Bocello draw all the characters and the portraits. So if you play X-Men, the official game on GBA, that's Chris Bocello art. And Tim Townsend's ink, and then we worked with him again shortly after that in an even deeper capacity on Aliens Infestation, where he illustrated and did character design for all 20 Marines in the game, and yeah, just again, he was like such an idol of mine to this day. He's, I think, one of the best comic artists ever, especially in mainstream DC and Marvel. And it was such a pleasure to be able to bring him into doing some of the cutscene work for us on those games.
That's super cool. Now, Adam, you have written for comic books as well as games. So is there a difference between, writing for the two mediums?
Yeah, so I am actually writing a lot of comic book stuff right now. Outside of video games, I tend to kind of like to work on non-video game stuff, and so for the past decade, I did a lot of dabbling in children's books. But more recently, I've just been really smitten with comic books. So the only thing that I have that's out, which came out last year, and you could probably find it online, find it on eBay, is the aforementioned Yars Rising comic book, based on the game by James and myself. I wrote the script for that, and we worked with the fantastic Ellie Bruni on the interior art, and Ashley Hetrick did the cover art. That it's just really fun, and so I'm working on a couple other projects right now. One of them is a very massive work. I'm finishing it up right now with the artist. It's going to be 250 pages plus for the
dang.
first volume. Yeah, we've been working on it for almost 3 years. I'm very excited about that one. But as far as, creativity, I love the fact that it's just such a small team. If you have
Mhm.
one person who's a pencil or inker, then it's effectively just a two-person team. You got the writer and you got the artist, and you guys are jamming together and coming up with stuff. And I've worked on games that are not much bigger, but I've also worked on games and that are 30, 40 people. I think James, your work on not Adventure Time, Advance Wars, probably bigger than any game I've worked on. And there's just something nice about just the intimacy of having a very small team and having work created that doesn't have to go through so many hands. It's like basically I write the script and then the artist draws it, and then later it'll get lettered and stuff. But it's basically the core work is done with just the two people. As far as the approach for it, it's not that different, at least when I've done it, from writing scripts for video games. So,
Okay.
the main difference is that with video games, you need to cover so much else. So you have the script in your video game, but you also have the game design document. You might have a technical document. You might have an art design document. You don't really need any of that, at least so far in what I've done in comics. You can kind of just dive into the script. So I also like that quite a bit, that it's just such an immediate workflow. You basically just sit down, type out the script. I have a template saved up, and I just start typing in the descriptions and typing in the dialogue. And then when it's all done, then I just share it with the artist, and we hit the ground running.
It really is an efficient way of storytelling that way, isn't it? You basically
Yes.
are just focused on the visuals, and you can make sure that you can communicate to someone's mind and imagination. And I think that's what I love about comics, where you are bringing a little bit of your imagination into it. There's no audio, there's no music, but maybe there's like onomatopoeia, or maybe you can just like see the visual and imagine how it sounds, and you can imagine the voices. And so that kind of ties into like retro gaming, where you see like a pixel art and it's like very rudimentary. You bring a little of your imagination into it, and I feel like comics really are similar that way. And it's efficient in that you can tell a story with a lot less effort, because you're not having to animate individual frames of animation to show everything, or create the record the VO and do all those things. Although we do that sort of thing all the time with our motion comics, don't we?
Yeah, and like you said, it's very efficient. So I mean, we always say anybody can make a cartoon, anybody can do a game, anybody can do a comic and do a story, but really, really anybody can do a comic. Like if you have a piece of paper and a pen, you can just get at it. In fact, there's this history going back decades called the 24-hour comic, where comics creators will basically
Yes.
just sit down for 24 hours and try and do a 24-page comic, one per hour. You'll still see people posting this during kind of the more official weeks that it goes on Twitter and Blue Sky and stuff like that. But yeah, it's just it's the easiest, one of the easiest forms of storytelling, versus comparatively, like let's look at like River City Girls, when we do like the animated intro sequence or the boss intros. I mean, we might be working on those start to finish for almost a year. It takes so long to do traditional animation, and then games even longer. We're working on those between 12 and 24 months typically. So, yeah, it's nice that there's just this immediacy to it. And when you have a fast artist, like a lot of the popular comics have a dedicated artist cranking out an issue once per month. So they're doing 23, 24 pages once per month, almost a page a day. And you'll never see that kind of like speed in like any other art form, really.
It's true. Yeah, you mentioned 24-hour comic. I always used to love to do things like game jams, which is where you have like 48 hours to make a small game, and then everyone meets, and like it's a little bit like a show and tell. Um, I guess a secret of mine is I would also do 24-hour comics. We had a comic book store here in Santa Clarita, where it was a Brave New World Comics. They're not around anymore, but they every year would host a 24-hour comics where artists would come and they'd like have like an area open for people to draw. Several years running, I was doing that, and it was so fun how quickly we were able to just come to like a result where, with games you had 48 hours. It was a lot more effort. 24 hours was like really comfortable for a comic. I wasn't like straining or staying up all night. And I was doing that every year for a while, and just coming out with like different comics, and even run into artists and people we know they're doing it. And it always, the great benefit to that is it was like a exercise for your brain creatively. I always felt like doing that kind of challenge, I would walk away and now be ready to tackle the creativity of larger things like game ideas. So that's another great benefit of just getting something down in a
Yeah.
comic.
I think the general applicability of how to produce stuff, it crosses between all art forms. So I mean, James, you grew up doing a lot of game jam stuff. I learned production in the weirdest way in college. I was one of the founding members of a radio play class, and we did that for
Cool.
like 3 or 4 years. But that's how I learned how to write, edit, collaborate, give notes, cast, do VO recording, sound effects, music, like all that stuff. Everything that we apply in our video games, minus the gameplay, I basically learned in that. And yeah, definitely, I would, anybody who wants to get into games, anybody who wants to get into any art form, the number one thing, and I hear this from everybody we talk to, number one thing you need to do to be able to build those skills is finish a product. And it doesn't matter what the project is. It can be a comic book, it can be a short story, it can be a video game, it can be, a cartoon, it can be a written story, whatever. But you learn so much from going through the process of starting something, pacing yourself, revising it, finishing it, revising it again. And
Sure.
like James said, like, if you have any opportunities to do a game jam or to do a 24-hour comic stuff, it's just that process on fast forward. The more things you finish, the better you get at production in general of any kind.
I didn't know you had a radio play background. That's really neat. I feel like that
Me neither.
definitely ties into your ability to do motion comic storytelling.
Yeah, it definitely, and why I'm so obsessed with dialogue. I think it was, I love that. I was more of a film buff than a reader, so I always liked dialogue. The other thing is that the comic artists that I really loved growing up were, Neil Gaiman, and then on the indie front, guys like Evan Dorkin of Milk and Cheese, and Kyle Baker of Why I Hate Saturn. Like these artists did tons of dialogue. So you look at like anything by Evan Dorkin, like Eltingville Club or Milk and Cheese, and there's probably more word bubble space on the page than actual art. But I just loved it. I love the bang for the buck. I have to be candid. I have low tolerance for like comics that you can just speed through in like 5 seconds. I think the worst thing in the world is like buying a 200-page comic and you finish it in half an hour because it's just a bunch of like silent pages without dialogue. I really like stuff where you get your bang for the buck. If you pick up the complete Milk and Cheese hardcover by Dark Horse, it's amazing, but man, you will spend like
So many
half a year
words.
going through that. Like in one sitting, you're going to get through like half a page or half a story or something, but it's great. I just love how packed that sort of storytelling is. And it's kind of funny when we do the motion comics for stuff like River City Girls, they actually
Right.
have way more dialogue than you would ever do as a comic creator. But we can do that because the word bubbles are popping in and out and they're vanishing.
Mhm.
And it's funny whenever we've had to do like, for the art book and stuff, like, oh, okay, make all of the word bubbles, visible at once. It just becomes flooded with it. You can like barely see the art. And I feel bad for Rem. It's like, oh, this doesn't even fit because we didn't have to worry about that with the game, but you have to worry about that with like a printed comic. So there's also, yeah, little eccentric kind of idiosyncrasies between the different art forms as well, which is interesting.
Our audience is piecing together where our love for chatty games comes from.
Definitely. So I'm yeah, we're kind of getting close to the end. Should we do some questions? Unless there was anything else you want to discuss first off.
Well, first of all, I'm going to do some, quick questions for you guys to learn more about your
Sure.
comic book interests and stuff. So yeah, don't need to think about this too hard or elaborate too much. But okay, let's see. First off, for both you guys, what comic creator would you like to collaborate with on a game that you haven't done so yet?
Oh,
You
for me
can't
it's
say
easy.
Stan. Can't say
Huh?
Stan. Someone else aside from
Oh,
from
that I
Stan.
was gonna say Stan Sakai would be my number one. Do an Usagi comic with him. Boy, I don't know. Probably just like, I mean, I've already worked with Chris Picciello a few times, so probably just going down the list of the people that I grew up loving, like the Evan Dorkins and the Kyle Bakers, and I like Peter Milligan, Kevin Coley, the artist on Hellblazer. Just any of those folks would be great.
James.
I mean, is it the sky's the limit? Can
That's
can we
sky's the
be like
limit.
completely not realistic? I
Sure.
mean, I recently like repicked up Urusei Yatsura by Rumiko Takahashi, who also does Ranma One Half, My Son Ikoku.
Mm.
Inuyasha is another one. The style, the storytelling, the world building, this it's a I don't know, it's an inspiration gold mine. I often think about if I could like have a game that looks like Rumiko Takahashi work. It's she's also a classic, one of the legends in the field. I'd go nuts for something like that. Just getting some kind of game that has that funny, heartfelt, iconic characters. Oh man, I would geek out about that. So that would be my pick if I like could work with someone. I mean, we can
Yeah,
get
that would be great.
unrealistic and ridiculous about it, but yeah,
I mean, Matt and Boson has been very upfront about how influential stuff like Ranma was on the Shantae series.
absolutely right.
Yeah, and
Okay.
I'll add one more. If we could do Sky's the Limit, I think this would be for both you and me. If you could just force anybody in the universe to work with us on one of our games, absolutely Katsuhiro Otomo, the creator of
Oh
Akira.
God, yes.
Yeah, that would be a dream. And he actually has done collaborations over the years. He'll do like character design for an anime that he does nothing else on. So he's like, occasionally down with that kind of stuff. But I would I still think Akira is probably the best anime ever made. And what's crazy is he not just excelled as an anime director, but he also did one of the best comics ever made with the comic version of it. So he's so talented. It'd be great to work with that guy.
Okay. Next question. If you remember, what was your first comic book or manga?
So, again, I hate to keep doing the same answers over and over. It wasn't my first. So I was raised on comic books. I'm sure it was probably something Marvel, just some Spider-Man or something. But when we moved to the town that I grew up in, I was almost 7 years old. I was 6.5. And we went to Mark's Comics and Cards, which was a comic book store there, and they had a big wall. This was like the first comic book store I went to, where it's not just like on a spinner rack, but it's like
Mhm.
they have them in the cases and in the sleeves and everything. And I bought Usagi Ojimbo #1. He had this
Oh, wow.
nice rack of, I think it was up to like number 5 or 6 then. So I bought #1, and then I bought all the rest of them and caught up, and then I've been kind of reading it on the fly ever since like year one or year two of the series. But yeah,
You still
that
have
is
that issue one?
yes, I do. I have a lot. I think I
Wow.
have almost all of the Usagi comics I have from when I was a kid. What's disappointing is I had a lot of like important Marvel ones as as a kid. I remember like I had the Secret Wars where the alien symbiote came out. I had all these like massive issues. I have no idea where those went, but luckily I still have my complete Usagi collection. So that's the earliest I remember.
James?
I'm gonna give you like the dumbest answer possible, but it's 100% true. When I was growing up and I was a little kid, like I want to say like 5 or 6, I was very much. I had a sweet tooth. I loved candy so much. I would eat candy all the time, and I think my parents like wanted to like curb my candy eating. And so one day they gave me like a big bucket of bubble gum, and the bubble gum had comics, and this was Bazooka Joe gum. And so
I had a
all of a
This
feeling.
led to a
sudden,
bubblegum crisis?
it was a bubblegum crisis, one might say. And so when I started like eating this gum, there every single one would have like this little one-off, like stupid comic. Some I didn't even like understand them, but immediately what
The
I did
most
was I went to like my
grown-worthy uncle puns, like the cheesiest puns ever.
really, yeah. I like it was above my head at 6 year old some of the times, and then when I did get it, it wasn't even funny. But it motivated me to do this thing where I started taking paper out of like my notepad. I would doodle and I would rip it into little squares. I don't know why I didn't use scissors, but I started making my own little like one shot comics, and I would like give them to like people in the school playground. And so the moral of the story is inspiration can truly come from anywhere, and that was my first comic.
Okay. Who are your favorite comic book characters?
Oh, for me, it's easy. My #1, putting aside Usagi, I'm going to stop answering that on every question. But my other favorite character is John Constantine, aka Hellblazer. I'd love the hell out of that. No pun intended. I would love to work on a John Constantine game at some point. I love the Keanu Reeves movie. I love that they're going to do a sequel. I love the Matt Ryan TV series. Yeah, John Constantine. And the cool thing about John Constantine is he is a DC Comics character, so he's in the same world as Batman and all them. He is one of the few characters that aged in real time. So when he was created by Alan Moore in the 70s or 80s, I think he was early 30s. And then when they wrapped up the comic series less than a decade ago, he was in his 70s, I think. And so, yeah, you see him age over the course of the actual issues. But yeah, he's my number one forever.
I did not know that.
That's a tough
James?
question. Favorite comic book character? I mean, I'll stick with like
Or
manga
manga
character, I
character.
guess. Yeah. Okay. Um, I think told a story on a previous Way Forward podcast about how I came to be as a human being in this world because of this character. Um, it is Atomu or Astro Boy. It's like the original
Ah, nice,
boy
nice.
robot. He's got like a balance of like cute and like badass. And I think this character, like this is a character that before I was born, my mom loved, and she was really obsessed with Astro Boy. And now I'll carry the torch forward of just loving this so much. It's also like the emotional core of so much Japanese pop culture. There's just this,
Mhm.
besides being this balance of cute and badass that I personally love and identify with and want to convey in my own works. There's this really amazing balance in these stories. There's action, but like there's a optimism with existential sadness. I feel like Astro Boy walked so things like the story of Mother 3 or characters like Mega Man could run. It's just so
Mhm.
influential and just so important to me and so
Yeah, it's like
inspirational.
the prototypical manga and anime.
It really is, and to this day, it holds up and it's
I
so
think it's
inspiring.
intentional. I think it's subversive too, because that's all that Tezuka stuff is. It looks cute and it looks adorable, and then like I remember the movie Metropolis. It's like people are dying and robots are being torn in
Right,
half, and yeah, but
right.
from Astro Boy on, to all of his different works, his stuff has always been like a blend of adorable and tragic.
It really is emotionally complex, and on the wrapper, it doesn't seem like it would be, but I love that about it. You're right, yeah.
Now, maybe the answer to this is no, but do you guys have any video game comic/manga adaptation recommendations?
Video. Oh, you mean like adapted from a video game or into a video game?
I meant from a video game into a comic or manga. But if you have any the
Ah.
other way, that's fine too.
I mean, I heard
Um,
Yars Rising is pretty great. Yeah,
Oh,
I
my
don't
aunts.
know. Boy, that's tough. It's usually more used to like something is like a movie or a TV show, and then it gets a comic and it gets a video game, or actually
mhm,
nowadays comic books tend to be kind of the starting point. A lot of I think people don't realize like the comics industry is really tiny. Like an indie comic, they don't make that much money. Even mainstream comics don't make anywhere near
right,
as
right.
much money as they did in the 90s. The reason
Mm,
they stay afloat is they are giving stories to DC Studios and to Marvel Studios and giant companies like Warner Brothers and Paramount and stuff. It's basically like an R&D story department.
yeah, it's
So
almost like a
you
proving ground.
exactly, and it's like, hey, what are we going to do for the next Iron Man movie? It's like, well, here's 40, 50 years of stories. Let's pick the best
Yep,
ones.
yep.
So it usually goes that way. I don't, yeah, something that has gone the
I'll let
So
you
other
guys
if
way.
the
consider that
if
for a minute or
the question
two.
is, like, comics that became a game, Astro Boy Omega Factor or Scott
Oh
Pilgrim
yeah,
versus
that
the
one's
World, the
awesome.
game I'd bring up.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Those are, like,
Yeah,
comics
yeah.
that became games, but games
That's
that
true.
became
Yeah.
comics, I'm hard pressed to find one.
Well, just in case you guys are interested or anybody listening is interested, I would highly recommend both the Street Fighter and Darkstalkers comic books. The Legend of Zelda
There
has
you go.
had a whole bunch of manga out there. Twilight
Oh,
Princess
of
was
course.
especially great. Like they turned into like 10 or 12 parts. It's amazing. Archie had an
Yes.
ongoing Mega Man series for like 4 years that was really, really good. And again, borrows very heavily from Astro Boy. So much more than you would get out of the Mega Man games. The comic really borrows from that. And also, I'm really enjoying the current Sonic run from IDW. So if anyone is curious, check all those out.
Yeah, and going the other way, if we're starting for comic books, I'm so excited for the upcoming Invincible game. I love the Invincible comics. I'm so excited to see that flourishing on cartoons and video games and all different formats. So that's one that I think is going to be really popular as it keeps getting adapted.
Yeah. I agree. Okay, let's move on to the listener Q&A. Let's see, we got a bunch of questions here. A lot of them from, we have a few from a little homunculus who asks, if you could adapt any comic into a video game, what would it be?
I already said mine. Did you say yours already,
It was
James?
Usagi Ojimbo. We know, yes.
That's true, huh? Oh gosh. I feel like Watterson would never want a Calvin Hobbes video game to exist. As much as I
No, he
would
Probably
never
love to
not.
does
see like more
anything.
of that stuff. He
He
never
doesn't
does
like licensing
anything.
stuff
No,
out now.
he never did a
Right.
single licensing. That's one of the other crazy things about that brand.
It's so wild. Yeah, they're like you see like those like what is it on the back of people's car? Like it looks like Calvin peeing, but it's like unofficial, and I'm sure he was like never okay with that. Um, I'm trying to think if there's like a comic I'd want turned into a game. But they've all had games already.
I'm going to
Like I
answer.
mentioned, I
I'll
love
let you
Lupin the
think.
Third.
Yeah, what's yours,
Sure,
Hoff?
let's hear it.
I love Marvel's Death's Head. He is a cyborg freelance peacekeeping agent, and it's got like this dark sense of humor as well. And that I don't think character has ever been transformed into a video game, so I would love to see that happen.
Cool.
Oh, that would be great. Yeah. The another one that I think is just a great comic character. I would love to make a game. I've been knocking on doors ever since I got involved in BizDev. Is a UK character, Judge Dredd from the 2000
Ah,
AD comics. I think Judge Dredd
Oh,
would be so much fun to do a Judge. And there's been a bunch of
yeah,
Judge Dredd
yeah.
games, but I think WayForward would do that
Mhm.
especially well.
Death's Head also a UK creation, as it turns out.
Oh, nice.
Um, so I'm going to jump on the next one, but James, if you do have an answer to that, feel free to jump in any time. Another one from a little homunculus who asks, "Is Risky Boots a human?" Uh, as far as we know, that's really a Matt and Aaron question, but I have not seen anything that leaves me to believe that she is not a human. We'll put a little asterisk there, but yes, I believe she is.
And they are humans like by name, right? They're like in that world. I know there's genies, but they're half the
Right,
non-genie
right,
people
yes.
are referred to as humans. They're not some other species, right?
Right, yep. Very, very true, because she's half
I
human,
would
half
say
genie.
I would
Shantae is, that
imagine
is.
yeah, I would imagine it's a safe bet, although she does have oddly purplish skin.
Yeah, I think that's probably influence of dark magic, but again, that is a Matt and Aaron lore question. Hopefully, one of these days we will be able to ask them directly when we have Matt on this podcast.
Roddy Tops is a former human.
true.
um, and
Okay,
then,
so I have an answer to the previous one, by the way.
sure, go for it.
Uh, it's a manga into a game. Um, it's by Kiyohiko Azuma, the creator of Azumanga Daioh, Yotsuba. This comic is just very like slice of life, like charming, just like it would be like doing a Boku no Natsuyasumi, which is kind of like a life simulator game. I can totally picture that working. I would love to play that game. So that's my answer. Very esoteric answer, but there you have it.
Okay, on to the next question then. Thank you for that answer, James. A little homunculus asks the third question: Where is River City? The answer is River City.
Yes.
Adam, do you want to elaborate?
Nope, that is the correct answer. So River City is the city. It is not in America per se. It is not in Japan per se. As Bannon and I fleshed out areas, we specifically pulled in iconic locations or types of locations from all different types of countries. So yeah, the correct answer is it's in River City.
All
So
right, thank
Neketsu
you for
High
that.
School is in River City, right?
Of
Oh,
course.
if you start getting into the different versions of names, we're going to be talking for like an hour.
He's not wrong. It is in River City. Evan Robbins asks a very important question: Papa John's or DiGiorno at 3 a.m.?
Little Caesars.
Yeah, I'm Team Little Caesars as well. I didn't know that about you, Adam. Yeah, Little Caesars all the way. That wasn't an option, but
I
yeah,
don't know if
they're
they're
always
open
hot
at
and
3
ready.
a.m., but if they are, I'll go for that too.
Yeah, they're
They're
not
always
open
hot and
that
ready.
late, but in fact, I love they have because my kids like Little Caesars. They have a great
Yeah.
pizza right now for the Fantastic Four, where it's super cheap. It's like
Oh
seven
yeah,
ninety
I've had
nine.
that.
Yeah, you get 4 different types of pizza on one thing. It's pepperoni, cheese, sausage and bacon, and then the last one is
Mhm.
pepperoni and jalapeno. I'd never had a
Yeah.
jalapeno pizza until they did that. I'm like, this is delicious. What have I been missing? So yeah, Little Caesars all the way.
All right, this podcast brought to you by Little Caesars. Not really. We have a second one from Evan Robbins, who asks, how much will Shantae Advance cost, and will it be available for pre-order? We're not talking about the price just yet, but we'll hopefully be able to be discussing that in the very near future. We're hoping to have it for pre-order on some platforms at least, but that is still TBD. Fingers crossed. Hopefully we can make it happen. Next question from Wesley Robertson, VA. What if TMNT X Shantae? That would be awesome. Yes, it
Sure.
would be.
Yeah, Matt. I know Matt is a big Turtles fan. WayForward's done a bunch of Turtles games over the years. I believe he was a big fan of I know he loves the '80s '90s cartoon series. I think he was also into the '80s Mirage comics. Um, yeah, it would be an interesting fit because Turtles is definitely a more depends on the brand, but it's usually a more serious universe than the Shantae universe. But
I
I
was gonna
doubt
say it's usually just as lighthearted as the Shantae
sometimes
universe.
it
Well, I'm
depends.
thinking of the '80s
It really does
series, you know.
depend.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
depends. Yeah, because I'm thinking of like the original Return to New York and the Eastman
yeah,
Laird
yeah, yeah.
comics and stuff. But I know Matt loves Turtles. I doubt he would turn down an opportunity to cross them over.
You are probably correct. Lazy Clay Gamer asks, will we see side stories for Shantae in comic books sometime in the future? And the answer to that is you can see side stories for Shantae in comic books right now. Both the 2024 and 2025 swimsuit specials do have comic book manga pages in there where they do have new previously unpublished stories about the characters. So go check that out. If you mean beyond that, only the future will tell. But yeah, there are stories out there right now. Let's see, another one from a little homunculus. What is Risky Boots? Risky Boots is a pirate, the queen of the seven seas. Lazy Clay Gamer has a. Did he already answer this one? Oh no, another one from them. If you write for games and comics, how does it feel trying to write each, especially knowing how completely different both media are when it comes to presenting stories to their respective audiences?
I mean, one of the interesting things that I'm finding about in comic books is you can kind of fiddle with it right into the very end because
Mm.
I'm working with my artist, like I said, on the 250 page original story right now that we're wrapping up, and it's not lettered yet, so I can still be tweaking dialogue if there's something we notice. Like we noticed that one of the objects changed design, and she's like, "Oh, I'll just go edit the old pages." So it's like right up until you have kind of the master copy that's sent off to the printers, you can really tweak almost anything. The same is not at all the case for video games. Like, you're developing stuff and you get to a certain point. Usually, if you have VO, kind of that's your really hard cutoff thing. It's like, all right, we better be super sure about exactly what the characters are saying, exactly what our cutscenes are. Sometimes you could do what's called pickups, which is like do a little bit more recording afterwards. But
True, true.
but yeah, between how recording dialogue and how much that costs on the time, and then just the effort to animate cutscenes and stuff, that's the biggest difference I've noticed. Is comic books seem to be something you can fiddle with and finesse right up until you lock it in. Video games, you definitely have to make some harder decisions much earlier.
Okay, that is fair. James, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
That
It's okay if the
about
answer is no.
covers it. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Uh, Toxicity Maxed asks, sorry saying that three times fast. When you have an idea for a story but don't know if you want it to be for a manga, anime, board game, or video game, what do you think will help you the most in making that decision?
I would probably make the decision based on available collaborators. So,
Yeah.
whenever I'm
I
working on a video
agree.
game, who's the programmer, who's the artist of the comic, who's the voice actor if you're doing audio. So, usually that would be kind of my starting point when I come up with a story. Usually I'm pretty compartmentalized, though. I'd be curious to hear how it is for you, James, but I don't think I ever come up with a story not knowing what it is. Usually I'm coming up with a story for a game or for a comic. I can't remember ever coming up with something and saying, what do I want to do with this?
I think my brain works similarly. If I'm coming up with a story, I already know by the time I come up with a story what it ties to, if it's for a game or if it's for some other kind of project, typically a game for me. But, I think that's a sort of thing that maybe you can think about what's feasible for you to express as well. If you have the means to tell a story through a board game, then gosh, that sounds awesome. Maybe that's what you want to do. Maybe you have the means to create that. That's the best way to do it because story, if as long as you can find a way to tell it, then you can express its value. So I would consider that too.
All right. Cool. Thank you for that answer. Question from Edwin Makes Games. Are there any WayForward games that you've noticed to have a performance boost on Switch 2? If so, which one?
Yeah,
I will
Advance
say,
Wars 1+2 Reboot Camp has a performance boost.
oh, that is awesome. I also noticed that River City Girls 2 has a big performance boost. That one was, kind of pushing some of the older systems to their limits. But yeah, it actually plays even smoother on Switch 2. So yeah, I would suggest checking that out.
Yeah, it kind of depends on our tech too, and I don't know another answer offhand. But when you're making games, you can either have a locked frame rate where it's like, okay, it's going to do exactly this frame rate, and not try and go beyond it, or sometimes you'll have situations where you have an unlocked
Hmm.
frame rate and it tries to
Yep,
be as smooth as possible. And my understanding is it's usually the latter, that with all Nintendo Switch 2 games where you're playing the Switch 1 version, you're going to see better performance on those.
that seems to be the case.
Accurate.
Black Lightning 100 asks, Teen Titans game when?
I would love to. We've talked about it over the years. We're not talking about it right now. I got to work on the Teen Titans cartoon for a few episodes. I love all
Yeah.
Titans. I love the original series. I love the comics by Perez and Wolfman, and I love the Teen Titans Go. I love the DC Nation shorts. I think it'd be a lot of fun. But that is up to Warner Brothers. Tell them to hire us to make a game. We'll absolutely make a Teen Titans game.
There you
Yeah,
go.
let them know you want it. And then the last question for today, another one from Edwin Makes Games. Can you speak about what was shared at the WayForward Anime Expo panel? We touched on it a little bit early on, but if there's anything you want to elaborate on, Adam, James, we were all there.
Yeah,
One thing that was shared was
lots of
cards.
feelings, lots of love, lots of warmth, lots of free games. Come, if we ever do panels, come. We'll always give out like free games. We always try and do at least one like big reveal. This time, it does not even have a title because it's R&D. But yeah, basically, WayForward's working on an original 3D game, and by 3D I mean 3D, not just art but gameplay, like full free roaming style in the vein of like Jack and Daxter and Ratchet and Clank and Mario Odyssey, that sort of game. So yeah, we showed like a little mini trailer for what we're working on for that, and it was a pretty big reaction. People seem to dig it.
Yeah,
Yeah, really, really,
yeah.
really positive feedback about that after caught up with fans and got to chat with them. Another thing we gave out was number one of the WayForward Collector's Card series. So if you were there, you got it. It's the Kibako card.
Yeah, that was fun. It's a holographic card because why not? Because it looks 10 times as cool. We all grew up on Magic. Oh, there you go,
There you
and all
go.
that stuff. So this will be the first. Like I said, we're talking about more booths, more panels, and we're gonna get some more of these things made in the series with more way forward characters and more homages and more funny ideas as we go. So hopefully within the next few months, we'll announce something else and you'll get card number 2.
Hopefully so. We also learned that nobody knows who the three characters are that know Branson's secret identity. So that was an eye-opening situation.
Hey, we're giving away, sealed limited run way forward games. They got to work for it. I think it's fine to have some tough questions. I liked your questions, Hoff.
Thank you. All right. I do believe that is a show. As we mentioned earlier, if you are at ComicCon, you will have the chance to get a load of exclusive Shantae merchandise and a chance to meet the Boson clan and get their autographs. Speaking of Shantae, the long-awaited Shantae Advance Risky Revolution GBA Collector's Editions are out in the wild. Mine just arrived yesterday, so I hope y'all have been enjoying those. We expect to have some more Shantae news dropping in the near future as well, so please look forward to that. Guys, is there anything else going on? Anything we should mention before we go?
I have one thing not related to us that I wanted to recommend everybody check out on the topic of comics. If you are interested in making comics, if you're interested about the process of making comics, there is a really just amazing. I think it's the best piece of art ever made about like the comic book process that I've seen. It's a manga called Look Back by the creator of Chainsaw Man, and it's great. You can find it. I just saw it at Barnes and Noble with my son the other day, although we already have a copy. And if you have Amazon Prime, you can watch the equally amazing animation adaptation of it. It's just such a beautiful story, and I've never seen something that shows all the heartache and all of the fun and highs and lows of what it's like to do comics, and specifically what it's like to do comics like as a hobbyist, as like a fan, and kind of grow into how can I turn this into a career. So definitely, whether you get the manga version or whether you watch the animated version on Amazon Prime or elsewhere, check out Look Back. It's so good.
That's a great animation.
James, anything else you want to say before we go?
Thanks for playing WayForward games. I'm gonna get back to work on the next future WayForward game. Look forward to it. Can't tell you what it is, but it's gonna be awesome. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for
They,
having me.
they should look way forward to it. With
Oh,
that terrible pun out of the way, this is a wrap on this week's chat. Thank you again to James Huge Bells Montagna. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, everyone listening and asking questions. Please enjoy the rest of the news out of SDCC, and we will catch you next time.
bye.